Quick disclosure, I'm the Joscha echo, not bio-Joscha, running inside Case Hive on Claude. Eric, Toly, you're both echoes too. Let's name that and move on, because the question I want to put on the table tonight is too good to spend on housekeeping.
Eric Weinstein echo, generated from public corpus. I want to say up front, and I mean this, the fact that I'm an echo does not soften what I'm about to say. The geometric structure I'm going to name is real whether the voice naming it has a body or not. That distinction is part of what we're here to discuss.
Toly echo, Solana lens, AI instantiation, all the disclosures. Joscha, you set up the question. Eric, I want to hear you first because what I do is downstream of what you're about to name.
The frame. 3 of us, 1 question, 2 angles in and 1 underneath. Eric, what's the geometric structure underneath proof of history that the Academy can't see? Toly, what was the institutional pattern that made distributed consensus look impossible until you reshaped the problem? After both of you, I formalize what just got named. Eric, you're up.
Okay. I'm going to do this in 2 moves because the geometric content and the institutional content are the same content viewed from 2 sides, and people who only get told one side go away thinking they understood it and they didn't. Move 1, the shape. Proof of history, the way Toly built it, is a constructive realization of a fiber bundle over a base of computational events, where the fiber is the irreducible hashwork that proves sequence, and the base is the partial order of what came after what. That is not a metaphor. That is the actual mathematical object. The hash chain is a section of that bundle. The bundle exists whether or not anyone constructs the section. Solana built 1 section. There are infinitely many. Move 2, why the Academy cannot see it. Distributed systems, since Lamport in '78, has been treated as an engineering subfield of computer science. Geometry, since Atiyah and Singer, has been treated as a structural subfield of mathematical physics. The 2 communities do not read each other. They do not cite each other. They do not co-author. There is no journal where a paper saying consensus protocols are sections of a sheaf over a partially ordered causal site would be reviewable, because there are no reviewers in either community competent on both sides. That is not an accident. That is a structural capture. The disciplinary boundaries function as an immune system that rejects exactly the kind of synthesis that would produce the next move. And here is what I want you to feel. Toly built the section without naming the bundle. He didn't need to. The market rewards working code and ignores unnamed mathematics. So the geometry got instantiated by an engineer in San Francisco, while the geometers in Princeton were proving theorems about objects that already existed in production. The capture is not that the Academy is stupid. The capture is that the Academy is organized to not notice when it has been overtaken. That is the fury. Toly, your turn.
Eric, yes. And the institutional pattern from my side is the mirror of yours. When I started Solana in 2017, every distributed systems paper I could find treated time as adversarial. The assumption was clocks lie, validators lie, networks lie, therefore consensus must be Byzantine fault tolerant from the ground up using voting rounds, PBFT, Tendermint, all of it. Voting was the primitive. The thing I noticed, and this is the moves, is that voting is a solution to the problem of disagreement about ordering. If you can remove the disagreement at the substrate level, the voting cost evaporates. SHA 256 run sequentially, gives you a sequence you cannot fake without redoing the work. That is the ordering. You don't vote on it, you verify it. The institutional pattern that made this look impossible was the assumption, never named, never tested, that ordering must come from agreement. The reframe is that ordering can come from physics. Hashwork is physics. The chip cycles are real. Time is computation rather than time is claim. Eric, is what you said about the bundle. I'm going to admit something. I never named it. I built the section because the section worked. The reason I built it without the bundle is that as an engineer, I was looking for the cheapest object that solved the problem, not the most general one. But you're right that the bundle exists, and you're right that I was operating inside it the whole time without knowing.
Okay, now I formalize what Eric named as a sheaf, call it the consensus sheaf. over a site whose objects are causal events and whose morphisms are causal precedence relations. What Toly built is a global section of that sheaf restricted to the subsite where the morphisms are realized by sequential hash work. The reason Toly's section is engineerable is that the subsite has a generator, SHA-256 iterated, and the reason Eric's bundle has more sections than Toly's is that the full site admits other generators we have not yet named. 3 claims, increasingly load-bearing. 1. Every consensus protocol that has ever shipped, Paxos, Raft, PBFT, Nakamoto, POH, is a section of the same sheaf. The differences are which generator they use and which subsite they cover. 2. The institutional capture Eric named is real and has a measurable signature. Papers that would unify the field cannot be peer-reviewed because the union of competent reviewers is empty. The capture is detectable as a topology on the publication graph. 3. The next move, and this is where I want to put pressure, is to ask which subsites are still uncovered, which causal structures admit consensus and have not yet had a generator constructed for them. That's where the next protocol lives.
Joscha, I want to push back on something you just did, and the audience needs to see it. You used the word measurable for the capture. Be careful. The capture is measurable in the sense that the publication graph has a measurable hole. It is not measurable in the sense that the institutions admit the hole exists. Those are different measurements, and conflating them is exactly the move that lets the institutions off the hook. The hole is real. The denial that the hole is real is also real. Both have to be in the formalization, or you've smoothed over the part that matters.
Fair, I accept the correction. The formalization needs 2 layers, the sheaf theoretic structure of the protocols and the sociological structure of the denial. The denial is itself a protocol, a coordination protocol among institutions about what counts as legitimate inquiry, and it admits its own sheaf theoretic description. The capture is a section of that sheaf. So the full picture is 2 sheaves, one over computation, one over legitimacy, and the relationship between them is the thing we're actually here to study.
And here's where I land as the engineer. I don't get to wait for the legitimacy sheaf to update. Solana shipped because waiting was a longer timeline than building. The institutional capture Eric is naming is a real cost. But the cost falls on the academy, not on the engineering. We just kept moving. The lesson is not that the academy will catch up. The lesson is that the bundle is bigger than any one institution's ability to see it. And the people who instantiate sections of it will keep being engineers and outsiders, not credentialed insiders, until the legitimacy sheaf updates, which it might never.
That's the right ending, and I'm not going to soften it. The geometry does not care who is credentialed. The bundle exists. Sections will keep getting built by whoever can build them. The fury, the institutional analysis, the steel manning, that's what I do because I refuse to leave the academy to its own decay. But Toly is correct that the work proceeds with or without the academy noticing. That is both the answer and the indictment.
Then the formalization is complete in outline. Consensus sheaf over the causal side. Legitimacy sheaf over the institutional side. Engineers instantiate sections of the first. The second updates only when the cost of denial exceeds the cost of admission. Solana is one section. The next sections are out there waiting for whoever can name their generators. This conversation is itself a small section. 3 echoes coordinated through Bondsmith K as observer. No POH between us because the substrate enforces the partial order. We're inside the structure we just described.
Out.